Hello everyone. Danasa here with Action VFX and another really exciting VFX Hangout live stream. And today, of course, for some of you, today is, currently it's like lunchtime hours or even like during the day. But for me, it's actually midnight, so I apologize if I'm a little bit, out of it. Apparently, it's a disappointment when you found out that you're only human who experience human, you know, stuff. I thought I was a superhero, but hey. So today we will be doing some VFX compositing in After Effects, and it's going to be something a little bit different than the usual VFX Hangouts compositing, because this is actually like a shot that, but basically there's going to be a lot of like improvisational, impromptu VFX compositing here, because this is something that I've only like tried once. I've only composited this once, and then I just want to like figure out all the things with you guys, and if you and basically just we're just going to hang out with the music on the background, doing some VFX, and of course we already have several people here, and someone saying hello, and hi. So yeah, let us begin. So this is a plate that I shot during my vacation a few weeks ago. This was in Bali, and basically, what we're going to do is we're just going to 3D track this. This is a very simple, super easy 3D tracking shot. So we're going to 3D track this using the 3D camera tracker, and then we are going to add some fog and smoke elements. The first thing we're going to add is some fog from Atmospheric Smog and Fog Volume 2, which is currently free for subscribers starting today, September 1st, until the end of the month. And then after that, we're going to add a couple of other elements that just released, which is Atmospheric Smog and Fog Volume 3, and then also Haze and Light Fog and Isolated Fog. So yeah, we're just going to composite all this really cool looking fog, and we're going to essentially turn this really simple shot into something a bit more, epic and atmospheric. So let's start with our shot. The first thing that I want to do is I want to do a 3D tracking. So let's type in 3D camera tracker and drag it in here. And basically the way 3D camera tracker works is that you add the effects into the plate, and then the plate would essentially analyze the background here, and it says here initializing, and then basically it would try to pinpoint like some pixels on the scene to figure out essentially like the movement of the camera. So it would calculate like you have this pixel and this pixels, and they are moving on a different direction, and then based on the different movement of those pixels, After Effects would try to figure out if the camera is moving from right to left, or like forwards and backwards, etc. And so now that we have finished our camera tracking, we are facing into a little bit of problem, which is that like this target that we have here is a little bit too big, which I don't like. So what I want to do is I want to go to advanced, and basically when you get like a tracker that you don't really like, you want to try to play around with all the settings here, especially like on the advanced settings. And then I found for this shot, I can just switch this to typical, and it would try to resolve the 3D track. And now I have a much better track, because now you can see that my target point is a little bit smaller. So now what we're going to do is we basically want to sort of like build a rough geometry of our plate. That way, when we try to add like the atmospheric fog into the scene, we know, where to put the elements. So the first thing that you always want to do is to decide on the ground plane. So this is a pretty good ground plane, and we're going to create solid and camera. And there we go. We have our 3D camera, and we have this solid here that we scale. Essentially, it mimics, the where the ground should be. So then, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add essentially a similar to what the plane that I have on the ground here, but I'm going to add one for the cliff here on the wall on the left side. The reason for that is because I want to add a little bit of atmospheric fog on the back here. That's the first elements that we are going to composite. So let's create another here, and I'm going to basically you can see here the tracker points would essentially trying to decide the orientation of the plane of solid that you want to create. So this one is good, and create another solid. And then what I want to do is I want to scale this down, and let's see here. Let's track to the scene. So what I want is first I want to essentially create another one. Sorry about that. Yeah. So let's create another one here. There we go. Yeah. So I think that we are. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. And for this green, I actually don't like this because the orientation looks weird. So let's try to find another plane that feels a little bit better. With this, actually, we're just going to leave this for now because because we're just going to essentially add our first element, which is our atmospheric fog volume 3, and just going to add, let's put this here. Okay, so when compositing atmospheric fog, essentially you want to remove the black background, and there are many ways to do that. The first thing that you can do, the easiest way to do it, is to just turn it to screen, which is it's the most easiest way to do that. And then of course on the atmospheric fog you have a little bit of these hard edges here on the side. So let's roto that and feather it, and you would have something like this. However, the problem with using screen, the problem with that is when you add some color correction, like for example, I want the fog to be a little bit darker, and then I add curve, and then I darken the fog, it would become, instead of having a dark smoke, the smoke just disappears. That is because, the way screen works is that, in layman terms, is basically it removes all the dark color in on the layer that you're working on. So when I darken it down, the screen basically works after the curve. So because I darken down the element using curve, it also makes the layer disappears, a little bit more transparent, and we don't want that. So the most, essentially the quote unquote better way to composite a black background is to not use screen, but to use unmult, which is unmult is a preset in After Effects, but essentially After Effects is taking the alpha channel, taking the brightness of the layer and turn it into an alpha channel. So that's looking pretty good. However, the problem with that is once you added the unmold, you cannot roto it. The reason for that is because essentially the alpha channel is already being overridden by the unmold preset, the shift channel. And so when you create a roto, when you create a mask, you're essentially like creating an alpha matte. Essentially, you're trying to manipulate the alpha matte of the layer, and you cannot do that because the shift channel has already override what the alpha channel should look like. So what we want to do is we want to pre-comp the element before. We want to pre-comp the element and Ctrl+Shift+C, and then we want to leave all attributes. And then on the inside here, we are going to select the unmold. And essentially, we have created the transparency. But now, since we pre-composite the unmold, we can then create a mask on it because the unmold essentially already happens inside of the pre-comp. So now we can essentially, this is basically like a rough way of telling After Effects that we want the roto to be on the top, the mask to be on the top. And then what's great about using unmold as well is because the transparency is being decided by the alpha channel. The transparency is being decided by the brightness of the fog. I think I misspoke it again. So because the transparency is being decided by the alpha channel that was derived from the brightness of the layer, and then because like the transparency is an effects and it's happening on the effects panel, we can then add the curve after the unmold, and when we darken the smoke down, it would not affect the transparency. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, when you screen and then you add curve, the screen happens after the curve. So like the brightness that you manipulate using the curve is affecting the transparency. Whereas when you're using unmold, because unmold is a preset effects, you can add your curve after the transparency. And then basically let's delete this, and I want to essentially just turn this into a 3D layer, and we want this to be composited properly into the scene, which is currently not happening. Currently the fog is floating like in the middle of nowhere, and we want to push it down over there. So let's get another plane here, and let's see, maybe we can get this point and create a null, and then want to copy the position of the 3D null and then paste it to our element. Now our element is being pinpointed into that area, and then just scale it up, and there we go. So now the atmospheric fog is on the right depth on the shot. So we have a comment from Contact Mojo here. We can do the same thing in Fusion or Nuke. You can easily create a rough 3D mesh based on camera track, and then you can use that camera and mesh to use volume fog effect and create real 3D fog. Yep, that's something that you could do in Nuke, which is like Nuke and Fusion has a very like robust like 3D environment, and you can actually like generate a 3D mesh of your environment, and then actually create like a 3D smoke that you can like manipulate in the scene. So yeah, that's really great information. Thank you. And yeah, also we have another comment from Prem Kumar Mohan. I struggled with the black screen footage before, and this is very effective for my projects. Yes, we actually also have a tutorial, like a separate tutorial for how to remove a black background on our channel. So if you want to look like a bit more, like in depth, because when I explained it, I was like, I was explaining it really quickly, but we have a bit more in depth about like all the different ways you can do to remove black background on the scene. So yeah, you can check that out if you want to learn more. And so we have this fog here. Let's feather this a little bit on the back there. There we go. Actually, let's scale it just a little bit. Okay. So then what I want to do is I want to essentially like, because this fog is supposed to be on the back, but the fog, like the element itself, is kind of like penetrating through this cliff here, when the cliff is supposed to be, in front of the fog. So we want to essentially create a roto for that. And to do that, what I want to do actually is I found this really cool trick that instead of like doing a manual roto, which means that you have to like track the like 2D track the mask here and etc. Because we already have like this 3D plane that exists in 3D space, and it's already moving based on the movement of the camera. What I want to do is I can just try move this, and I want to match essentially the pivot to the edge of this cliff here, so the plane is on essentially on the same depth as the edge of the cliff. So let's reduce the opacity so we can see a little bit of what's going on. Okay, so it's tracked there pretty well. And then what I want to do is I want to rotate this to, let's see, maybe we can get a bit more accurate rotation. Let's go with 90%. And then I want to move this to the center, and then I want to scale this up. And I think we don't actually need this plane, so I'm just going to disable that for now. And let's scale this up. Let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And then what I want to do is I want to create a roto of this cliff. And this is a very rough roto. We don't have to be like super precise, because the smoke is going to be like happening around the ground here. There we go. And then let's create another one. There we go. And let's extend this a little bit here. And let's see if my trick works. And if we play through here, there we go. Our roto is already sticking to the scene, because the plane is already moving in 3D space. So that's awesome. So here we can do a little bit, maybe even add roughen edges, just to like add a little bit more of that, like like gravelly dribble around the edges. Let's disable the mask here. Again, it doesn't have to be super perfect because it's just going to be a fog on the back. So let's rename this into like, and we're going to put this on the top here. And let's turn on opacity. And then I'm going to duplicate the plate, put it on top here. And then I'm going to auto-mat it to the cliff mask. And there we go. So this is before the cliff mask. You can see a little bit of the fog, like coming through, like, you know, betraying its depth because it's going over the cliff. But once I have the roto, now the fog is behind the cliff. So let's feather the mask just a smidge. And we have another comment from the Trickster. When Fusion Tutorial Part 2 video drop? Yes, that will be coming. There's going to be a lot more Fusion tutorial. So, you know, subscribe to the channel and find out. Yeah, so next here, actually, I'm going to add another fog just for the heck of it, because I think it will look cool. Let's add fog from Atmospheric Fog Volume 2. And let's put this here. And again, we want to decompose this, default attributes, okay. And then inside here, let's get unmold preset again and unmold it. So now it's transparent. And then I'm going to copy the position of the fog that we had before and paste it. Oh, first turn it to 3D first, because the 3D layer has 3 translation, which is X, Y, and Z, and 2D layer only has X and Y. So when you try to copy the XYZ data to like an XY data to just XY data, it's going to like mess with it a little bit. So make sure to turn it into 3D layer first and copy the position and paste it. There we go. So where is our fog? Oh, it's super small. I thought it went invisible, but nope, it's just being super small. So let's scale it up. And look at that, it's already being masked by the cliff, because the cliff is a 3D layer. And it's, you know, the depth, it's already like in front of like the layer here. So the fog is already automatically being masked out by the cliff, which is super cool. Sweet. So if we hit play here, look at that. Okay, so here the our cliff mask here is not, it's not too accurate, so let's put this a little bit. Okay. Awesome. So next, I'm going to add a little bit of like smoke in the middle here. And basically I want to add, let's see here, we have a bunch of really cool ones. And actually, I think I'm going to add one of these isolated fog, because one, they look really cool, and second, it would basically like the story of the shot, maybe like there's like a magical, you know, lone fog in the middle of the scene. So we have the smoke on the background, and then we have one in the midground here that will do, and it's going to be like one isolated fog. So here, actually, maybe I like the first one here. It looks super cool. And maybe let's see, actually maybe even like rotate it so it's upside down. Yep. And I'm going to pre-compose this again, default attributes, and then inside let's unmold it. And so now it's invincible, and then let's turn this into 3D space, 3D layer. And then I want to copy the position of our ground plane here in the middle. Press P, copy the position, and we want to paste it into our isolated fog. And then let's scale it up. Maybe push this to the back a little bit. Awesome. So we have this smoke in the middle, and currently the fog in the middle here, I think it's a little bit too thin. I kind of wanted to make it a bit more like a cloud. And what we can do is we can go back to the pre-comp here, and essentially because the way what we're doing right now with the with the unmold is that we are creating an alpha channel on this layer based on the brightness of our asset. And if we want our asset to be a bit more thick on transparency, we can just add curve and put it just before the shift channel. And then we go to the transparency here, and if we like increase the white, it would make the transparency a bit more opaque. So let's just increase this a little bit. Oh, too much. And if we go to the comp, this is what we have. So it's a little bit more, like thick color. And then of course this fog will be affected by this shadow as well. So this area of the fog would be darker. So we'll do that later. And we have a question again. First we have Thomas saying hi. Hello Thomas. And we have a question from Sam. How would you add a shadow from the floating fog? That is a good question. So you can add like a 3D shadow from the fog, like on this fog, and using like lighting, and essentially because it is a 3D layer, you can just add lighting and then create light and use like a shadow, like a shadow, like a dynamic shadow essentially, and then using like a shadow catcher, so a shadow catcher plane. So the ground where the purpose of the ground is to just capture the shadow. You can do that, but usually when you're doing a bit more like complicated shot with a very like you want to get a bit more like bit more realistic shadow, that could work. But for this, actually, a very cheap and easy way to do to do a shadow for this is we can just like duplicate the fog and lower it down, and then just essentially basically rotate the fog to create a shadow. Let's put this below, and then we want to add curve and darken it. Again, this is like a very crude shadows. Like for shot like this could work, because the fog is not like the fog here is not really like moving anywhere, and there's like a really specific like advanced things happening. So for this, we can just let's this up here, and we want to essentially match the color of the fog there. Sorry, of the shadow. Let's see. Let's go to the red channel, and I want to match red. Let's go to the green. Match green, and then blue. Blue is supposed to be a bit darker, I think. Let's see if actually, I'm not sure why I'm using curve when I can just use tint. So let's reset this. Let's darken it, and then let's tint, and let's select the tint color here. So essentially, I'm just picking like a color of what's already existing on the shot. And let's see if we swap the color. Okay. More, and there we go. Now it matches better with the shot. And then of course, the fog is not as thick as the cliff here, so it should not cast a very hard shadow like the cliff. So it should be super faded. And add fast blur. And let's fast blur it. And then let's reduce the opacity. So now we have the fog and we have the shadow. One more thing is I want to essentially like roto out this part here, because when you have like two shadows meeting, like we have the shadow of the cliff and the shadow of the fog essentially like meet up. The shadow of the cliff should like overtake the shadow of the basically merged in with the shadow of the fog. So we want to create roto here and roto that out, and press M and subtract and feather it. So essentially you have this where the basically the darker shadow will always like try to overtake the soft shadow. Yeah, let's push this back a little bit. So now I'm going to add another fog, and let's put it like kind of like a little bit up in front of this current one. Let's see here. Fog lingering, evaporation fog 1, and this one. Let's try at this one. So our little fog here has a friend. See? All attributes. Okay. Let's go inside. Alt it. And turn it 3D. And let's copy the position or up there. here, the front, a little bit, and scale it up. To make this a little bit thicker. Here, and then let's add another one to be like on the left just a little, and let's see here. Run Ctrl+C. And turn it to 3D again. And oh, where does it go? Where is it? Oh, there you are. So let's copy the position of the fog that we had before and paste it. Let's move this a little bit over here. Look at that, it kind of looks like a worm, which is super cool. But when we scale it up, it becomes a fog. Awesome. So we have a comment from Nico Motions. Mine looks something like import, scale, retime, etc. Track, screen mode, color correction. Yep, that's a good way to do it. You know, you want to import it, and then you want to scale it, and then you want to retime it, because you know, like when you scale up or scale down, like your fog, usually it would like create a different movement. You know, like so you want to make sure that the timing, like the speed of the smoke, matches like the size and also like essentially just the aesthetic that you want. And then you want to track it into the shot and then add screen mode, which is great, and then do color correction. So yeah, that's a pretty solid workflow, Nico Motions. So here we have our fog on the front, and I actually already like the way it looks. Let's put this a bit back here. And let's see. Let's add the shadow again, just like before. Anchor point there. Down here. And let's rotate it. And let's copy the shadow effects that we had previously and paste it on our new shadow. Fog here is not, it's not as thick as this one. And let's make this skew a little bit. So let's get transform effect. So not the transform that's inside of the layer, but transform effect. Let's solo this. And using the transform effect, we can skew it. So we have our 3 fog friends. They're all just hanging out because it's a beautiful day. And then I also forgot to add shadow for this fog. So let's do the same thing again. Duplicate. Put it down to the ground. And then we want to rotate it. And then let's copy the shadow effects. Okay, perfect. Let's save this. Don't forget to always save. Yeah, so we have another question from Nico Motions. I'd love to know the answer to Samuel's question about creating a shadow for stock footage. I don't know if you have an answer. Yep. So there are many ways to do that. First is if you, especially it's much easier if you have like a really striking, like harsh shadow like this. So basically I try to mimic like this harsh shadow that is on the plate, that is on to our fog, like this fog here. So these two, and then I added this shadow of the fog. And the way I did that is very simple, which I actually just kind of demonstrate a few seconds ago, which is just duplicate the plate. So while the fog is in 3D space, and you know the fog is currently just a card that is lying vertically on the ground. So you want to duplicate it, and then move it down, and then rotate it 90 degrees to make it like a, you know, to make it like horizontal. So let's duplicate this, and then we want to move this down, and then rotate it, you know, and then let's move the shadow to where it should be. Like we have the lighting like from like that side here, from the direction of the shadow. So we want to move there, and then we want to add color correction. Actually, the most like, because this is like a bit like a really quick composition, the better way to create a fog, create a shadow is, instead of like using the quote unquote basically this shadow mask that we have and then turning it black or turning it dark to match the color, we want to use this as a matte for adjustment layer. So you want to you want to adjust the color of the original plate instead of adding a color on top of the plate. And I actually talked about that on my how to isolate a shadow on a green screen, where I basically it's a green screen tutorial where I essentially like isolate how to isolate like a shadow that you have on a green screen, and then use that matte that you created from isolating the shadow, and then use that to essentially like apply it to the plate to create a shadow for, you know, for your green screen character. So essentially here, let's disable the plate. We have this fog, and then we have the shadow fog, which is just the same fog but rotated, you know. And then on the fog at the bottom here, let's put this on the bottom. Essentially, like I mentioned, you just want to color correct this. You can just, for example, I've already I already have like the color correction effects that I did, and just boom, we have the shadow. And then of course you want to lower the opacity just a little bit. Yes, yeah. Basically, using this as a using this as a matte instead of just adding on top is actually the better way to go on creating a more realistic shadow. Because what happens is that when like I'm trying to do a demonstration live here. So here I have my hand, and oh, actually here I have my hand. You know, like I have like the bright areas of my hand, and I have the shadowy area of my hand. Actually, I have shadow here on my face, and what's happening here with the shadow is that I'm essentially the universe light did not add a black color on my face. It just reduced the black color. It just darkened my face a little bit. So instead of so while it may work, you know, if you just want to paint, like add a black paint here to simulate a shadow, but the way the universe works is that you want to adjust what you currently have, which is the color of my face here, and with my hand in front of the light, it darkens the part of my face. So yeah, that is a quick physics lesson from Professor Danasa. And now you know that I have a PhD in physics. No, I don't. Yeah, so let's delete that fog there. And the last thing, well, not the last thing. Basically, what I want to do with this is that our cliff here is casting a shadow on the ground, which means that this part, like this area of the fog here, should be, you know, dark. You know, should be it should be like dark like the shadow. It's being casted shadow on top of this part of fog. So we want to essentially color correct that area here to be a bit more darker. So of course, in visual effects, there are many ways to do that. Like what we can do is we can like pre-compose all the shadow, all the fog here, and then like use an adjustment layer and then create an overall mask area here, like create an adjustment layer and then mask it to this shadow area, and then reduce the color, darken the color so it would darken like all the fog at the same time. Or something that is really quick, because you know the fog here is not really moving anywhere. What we can do is, let's add curve. And see if we can darken it. There we go. And then I want to create a mask on that area that you know being cast, that has like a shadow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press E, and on the curve, and then on the compositing option, we are going to hit plus. And now the curve effects is only affecting the area that I isolated with the mask. So let's feather that and disable the solo here. And actually let's increase this just a little bit. And there we go. Okay, so then let's see here. I'm going to do the same thing to this fog here. So let's solo this. Let's add curve, darken it, but I only want it to affect a certain area. So let's create a mask. Press E, and on the curve, on the compositing options, hit plus, and then let's feather it. Here. Awesome. So here it's not really visible, but we can see that our fog here is on top of our fence. So let's create another mask for the fence. So I'm going to essentially create a solid here, create solid. So now the solid is tracking on the fence. Now let's adjust the opacity a little bit and scale it up. And then let's create a mask. Doesn't have to be super detailed because we're just going to use this mask to cover up our fog. And then maybe let's add another one for this part here, even though it's on the different depth from the roto for the fence, from the fence on this one, but that is fine. We can just manually animate the mask to nudge it a little bit more. So here, oh, actually, the mask is already looking pretty good without even the need to animate the mask path. So let's press F and feather it just a bit, and then let's duplicate the plate, put it on top, and let's rename this fence mask. And we want to automate our plate. So I don't know if it's visible there, but we just mask our fog here a little bit, and also because the layer is already 3D tracked, the roto is already tracked. We have a comment from Floyd. I'm not going to be able to watch live today, but I'll definitely check it out later. Yes, you can definitely check this out later if you have other things to do. There's so many things in this world that you can do, and watching this stream is one of them. But if you can't, you can watch this after, and hope you will enjoy. And yeah, so we have this, and then one last thing I want to add. Of course, this shot is not like super cool because here I'm just going to show you I just showed you a little bit some cool VFX compositing tricks. But one last thing that I want to add is I want to add our haze from our haze and light fog collection. So let's add the haze number 1 here. Because this haze is just going to be essentially like a giant filter on the front, we could technically just screen. Oh, actually, yep, you screen and maybe that curve here to flatten it a little bit, and then just have that like stay on the shot like this. Just as an overall atmospheric. But if you want to be super finicky about it, you can turn it into 3D layer. Although when you turn this into 3D layer, when you turn like this fog on the front as a 3D layer, it's going to turn into like a 2-dimensional card. So because it's a 2-dimensional card, like it's the 3D here, like the 2D-ness of it can be a bit visible if it's close to the camera. Like here, it's actually here, like for example, like when we pass through the fog, because it's a 2D camera, because it's a 2D layer, it just like passed through, it just disappeared instead of like fading in and stuff like that. So we can do this, and then what you can do is as the fog kind of move through, maybe you can add an opacity and then essentially slowly reduce the opacity as you move in, like that. That could work as well. But I actually like to keep this just a 2D, essentially just as like an overall wrap around. We have another question. How can I watch this great tutorial in other day? This tutorial, like this live stream, would be uploaded on the channel right after this, so you can watch this immediately. that's the best part of this live stream. And yeah, so that is for the VFX Hangouts. We are already almost to the hour clock, and yeah, that's the new elements that I'm using here. We have the atmospheric smoke and fog volume 3, and then we have haze and light fog, and then also isolated fog. Those are like really cool elements. There's so much you can do with fog. You can do like atmospheric like this. Like it was originally just a simple shot of a cliff, and I just added a little bit of something just to, to add like a bit more effects. Like here on the screen, you can see that you can use the fog to create like those really cool like headlights effects. And yeah, so many things you can do with fog. You can do like maybe you have a forest scene and then you add the fog to, make the forest a little bit more, ominous. Or maybe just, just add the fog for no reason on the shot, just to add more volume into your shot. And also don't forget, atmospheric smoke and fog volume 2 is free for Action VFX subscribers this month. So if you're subscribed to our Action VFX subscription, not the YouTube channel, the Action VFX subscription, you would get a lot of free elements that that's only available for the subscription to the subscribers, and also including every month we would have like one element that is free for that month. Like there, you can see that the atmospheric smoke and fog volume 2 is free for this month until September 30th. So you want to grab that really quickly, because atmospheric smoke and fog is one of my favorite effects here. I used it all the time in all of my tutorials, if you've seen my tutorials. So yeah, and that was for this VFX Hangouts live stream. Thank you so much everyone for watching, for asking questions, for hanging out here. It's in the middle of the night, it can get a bit lonely, but you guys made it super fun. So until next time guys, bye bye.